Waiting for other players. There we go. Alright, so chemicals and decent scav. Interesting if this is going to be used for an expansive or a scientist, because I can see both. Some sort of a robot over here. I will point out that silicon, excuse me, is a pain and unusable for a power robot in spite of high price of power. So this robot is not something I fully expected, but I did not pay attention to just how expensive iron is. I'm not a huge fan of double things, and I somehow completely missed the combo tile, meaning that BB-Head is going to have a big advantage here with the combo tiles and incredibly expensive stuff that he founded on. Space Oddity is going with the scientist play. It's a solid choice in my opinion. Not maybe the greatest because you don't have a triangle, but it's very solid. I'm not a fan of a metal mine because the steel is just far too expensive. You could have moved into 3, but that's just a minor thing. Steph is being a generic robot, and Pops is being a generic robot as well. I'm not sure why. Well, Pops is trying to make a bit of a finesse with buying up cams. The problem with that play is that you have your cash locked in. He probably has enough for an upgrade at this point. Well, almost. So I guess it's not too bad. But it's easy to miss the point when you can upgrade. You kind of want to upgrade ASAP. BB-Head, sitting on a ton of food. That's a slightly better decision, maybe, even though food actually has a lot less pressure. Actually, it has a tiny bit more pressure now that Space Oddity upgraded. The fact that what I don't like about Space Oddity's found, actually, I didn't pay so much attention, is that it's a little bit clumsy. You don't have a good water triangle, quite frankly, at this point, which with 3 robots is not a huge deal, I think. So it can work out, definitely. It's not a big problem. Pops Your Socks, just being a robot doing robot things. For some reason he claims this style as opposed to this style for a wind turbine. Probably thinking that he should do it just so that he can be sure to link it up, but I would rather claim high aluminium just because why not, really, that's the only reason. Steph and BB-Head are the ones that had an upgrades, BB-Head being there first and moving to power heavily because power did start really high, and we have 3 robots in the game and none of them is a power robot, so that's a thing. Power is a thing. Power will be difficult. BB-Head returned the claim of a Geo, or was that Pop's claim? I believe that was Pop's claim, and he did claim a wind turbine, and this is why I don't like that. Not claiming that tile, because he would have had these 2 great wind turbine tiles, whereas the high aluminium was still taken by Steph, because there was still value in that. Steph is definitely going to have the hardest time in terms of power, it would seem. He is moving to solar just because there's so much carbon that was spent on wind turbines, meaning it's so expensive, and he's bidding quite high. Space Oddity is going to claim that thing, though, and Space Oddity probably has the biggest problem in terms of power and in terms of debt. I expect Space Oddity to have a lot of debt problems in this game. Already in D level of debt after this auction. That is a bit much. That is a bit much in my opinion. Struggling to upgrade to level 3. Reactors you have to question because apparently the price was not high at all, and robots are making sure that the price is not going to come up because oxygen is only moderately consumed by the colony and no one's making loss, and fuel really has no pressure as Space Oddity is not shipping much at all. BB-Head is ahead on upgrades. Combo tiles, expensive steel, all very good stuff. Carbon is pricey, definitely a good call to get some carbon. Not a lot of good carbon on this map, by the way, in general, in the first place. Only 1 other medium tile left and 2 lows, which is a sad thing to have to claim. I expect carbon scrubbing to be an important pattern. The question is who is going to be able to move into it, and is anyone going to be able to move into it? An interesting wind turbine on PB Head's part. Something I'm not fully understanding. I guess he just wants that little extra to make him break even, and maybe he will connect them over here. Maybe he'll just repurpose it into a triangle later on, except it's quite pricey. Carbon's at 50 bucks. Popsia sucks, on the other hand. He may be behind an upgrade, but he has solved his debt somehow, which is not necessarily a super amazing thing to be proud of if you're behind upgrades, but it's a thing, and he's moving into more power, and he's going to make some good power money. I almost want him to transition his steel into more turbines and just go heavy into it. The problem with that is, of course, that he got frozen, unfortunately. I wonder if freezing this style was actually better. Probably not. Oh, definitely not, actually. It should have bounced this way, yeah. That makes sense. Space OTD levels of debt. How to get out of the levels of debt? I don't know. Already 180,000 after the interest. That's too much debt in my opinion. Still no advanced buildings. PB Head can upgrade to level 5 and no one really has any cash, so he is indeed going to do that. Space Oddity is up for grabs in my opinion at this point. Scientific territory is usually good. So it should probably be a good investment. Okay, sorry, I passed out there. Optimization Center in place of a good Pleasure Dome won by Popsia sucks, which is something I hate to see. It's a good thing, you have no debt, you can afford it, but you're not going to make money on power, which you could have easily done. And power is indeed what is going to be upgraded, but that freeze was quite brutal, and PB Head is definitely capitalizing on the power price. And you can see that he did not connect his turbines, even though he could, but he didn't do it on purpose, and the goons would have allowed him, realistically. Like, say he placed the goon in the same spot, he spends that extra claim to put it here, it connects, but it can't really go bounce anyway. But I expect him to run away with this game, really, because the power is really expensive and he's making the most of it. Space Oddity does have a solar panel in space of that silicon. Not a decision I like, simply just because how far it is over there. Food instead of reactors is something I do like, though. Popsio Socks is frozen still. Still frozen. Frozen again, in fact. Very painful. Steph had somehow avoided that. I guess the 2 solar panels were just enough to keep him from it. And he isn't doing bad at all. Moved into chems, which is a great thing to move into. I'd like to remind that the colony is European, so chemicals. It's all about the chemicals. Space Oddity at $5 a share. That's a terrifying thing to realize, and the question is who's going to buy her out first. PB Head certainly approaching the moment when he can start making power money, and the price of power is still well over 200 and not dropping quite fast enough. Now that Pops is unfrozen finally, it actually is dropping quite fast. Unfortunately, by then, with that auction, he managed to get at least 30-something thousand of extra debt, but even without it, just being frozen for over 2 minutes really made those 40k debt a big problem. And PB Head is getting a buy on Space Oddity, it would seem. He only needs how much more? Almost 50,000, a bit less. chems are good. Optimization center is very good, and that's a decision I really like. Offworlds, I would like to point out, are very mediocre in this game. Heavily mediocre. At least. We should, excuse me, potentially going to make for a very strange game with the 3 robots, meaning that the pressure on prices is low. You can see that life support is not really that expensive. If the scientist had moved into more life support, it would have been even cheaper. The freeze comes off. Unfortunately, it's probably not enough to stop BB-Head from making a ton of money. I wonder what they are going to move in once power crashes, though. He's also upgrading power. You can see Pops, by the way, did 2 upgrades because he desperately needs to make that cash, which he is not, because he's shipping water, he's shipping silicon, he's shipping carbon. It's a big problem. He's running on a hacker array, which is something I like, but at the same time he's hacking electronics, which actually no one is making this game. Last game, it certainly was not a good decision on his part, but this game is it's something I like. I would also like to see him sell out of whatever he can sell out of to buy into electronics, though that's a difficult thing to do when nothing that you own is worth much. I would also like him to replace this thing with... I'm a little bit confused as to why this is making 1.5 power. Oh, because of the upgrades, of course. Yes. BB-Head, in the meantime, upgraded his cams, and he's upgrading electronics, which he's moving into, and which he did pre-buy, as he saw that no one bought into the resource. And he didn't sell out of these. Now he did. But BB-Head is sitting on a ton of cash. By the way, I would like to point out that Steph finished the buy on Space Oddity, which is something I like. At the same time, somehow Space Oddity is still not making much money. I guess the fact that it's an HQ level 3 sub does mean something. But I have to say that I expected more from the sub.
How could one refuse such a wonderful plot of land?
This sub is definitely a very long-term investment. Surprisingly few nukes had gone out. And yeah, the start it wasn't actually so bad. I kind of liked the start. I don't know if it was even that well, that badly played out in terms of that. It's just that the death kills, and that the auction for 28,000 was not worth it. Definitely not worth it. Actually, the auction went to Popsia Socks. He also did win an auction for a lot. Actually, there were 2 expensive auctions in this game. This steel mill is something that is a bit depressing to see. Just breaking the adjacency. And power is worth nothing, so you really kind of want to have 2, I don't know, sausages, is that what you can call them? Instead of this this triangle with an extra 1. Steph is moving hard into electronics. Steph has a lot of carbon. I generally would like to say that I like Steph's position, except I don't like the total lack of advanced buildings, which is not something that BB-Head has. BB-Head has an Offworld, which is, again, a mediocre thing. But it's a thing. And that's the problem. We need things. And definitely the optimization center is a very strong thing that is going to go BB-Head's way, even though the prices are low, as I had mentioned before. That's dynamite. It's a good dynamite, because nothing else is really useful for popping goons. Thankfully, goons are so expensive due to all that power that was spent, that was being produced and had to be defended because power really was important. Also, 3 robots means that even if power crashes, as soon as people move out of it, you can see what happens. 5.5 power consumption by Popsia sucks. All that shipping is just crazy. I would like to see him turn water off, turn silicon off, well maybe not silicon, turn carbon off. And well, certainly 4 advanced buildings in the colony. Kind of painful.
The engineers have advanced our production.
Also, I'd like to point out that the patent lab just came down. However, it might not matter, because PBHead is establishing a huge advantage, and it will take a while for the patent lab to work out, though Pops definitely has a lot of cash from the electronics that are well upgraded. And look at this. This is awkward. You have almost 300 silicon. You should probably move the solar panel over here rather than wind, which is very bad. Very bad power. Staff in the meantime is not making much, which is not something I enjoy seeing. Excuse me. Apparently 1 cup of tea was not enough. Now I'm seeing an off-world out of him now. That's a much better sight, even though still off-worlds are very mediocre compared to what they can be. But it's difficult to make a play on anything in this game. I would like to point out though that glass had been ignored and still is ignored for reasons unbeknownst to me, and Pops is in a stellar spot to move into glass, which he's not doing. He is instead hacking energy? That's a question. That's a big question. He had a lot of energy and very little debt. He can make money on that energy easily. I don't know, that's something I like to see. The fact that no one is making glass... Oh, Steph is finally making glass. That's the thing. Maybe I missed it. That's a much better thing. The only problem with that is that Steph is making silicon unlike Pops. And the fact that Pops is keeping silicon high is a very good thing to see. PBHead is making very negligible amounts of silicon, so hacking silicon as opposed to power is something I would like to see. Hacking glass once Steph moves out of his production because silicon just goes through the roof is something I would like to see even more. So Popsky Socks is actually very well set up to do stuff that I love to do. It's almost like he watched me play or something, but he isn't doing that, which makes me a bit disappointed.
Continue to improve.
And at this point, Popsky Socks actually has one of a kind each one of the advanced buildings, which usually is a bit excessive. I would say thinking machines are going to be quite important. A lot of that is also very difficult though. However, PBHead is being PBHead and just going for the buy, saying I don't care, I'm gonna buy you out. Do what you will, but the D-Det and the fact that he isn't defending himself, which by the way is atrocious.
What a payout.
He should have defended himself more. Is very bad. Now, this is a problem though. This is something I don't agree with in Pop's case. He's buying into Steph, meaning that PBHead wants to buy him even more, and it's not really making him that much more expensive. In fact, paying debt would make him much more expensive, I think. Space Oddity never, the AI that is, never quite managed to upgrade to HP level 4, which is disappointing, and doesn't have that much money, which means it's kind of a bad investment. It's definitely a good investment in terms of stock price, but other than that, it's a bit of an uphill battle, I think, for Steph at this point, because Popsky Socks just failed to defend his stock. And I think got blown up, but thinking machines are in game, so it's not as terrifying as it could be. Pops, however, will be a stellar sub, meaning that if PBHead can get to this buy, he will probably run away with the game. Steph, however, spends so much money defending the off-world. I don't know if I like that at all. That was an incredibly expensive goon squad. And PBHead is moving their second off-world, because eventually, if you wait long enough, even horrible off-worlds will start making money. I'd like to point out that electronics are really good. Electronics are actually a really good sand. It's just that their price had not been knocked down sufficiently at all. Unfortunately, Pops seems to be intent on forcing Steph to react and kind of setting PB Head to win the game easily. This definitely makes it difficult for Steph to somehow fight PB Head off. A very late Hijuru Club, excuse me, comes off for Steph. He had made a few upgrades, and life support, you can see, eventually does get very expensive, especially if the AI is all dumb and stuff. And the colony keeps growing slowly but surely. Now, this pleasure dome that I never quite commented on, but I hated. 3 robots in the game and the scientist. It's almost as bad as it gets. It's just slightly better than 4 robots in the game. So this pleasure dome, and that by the way is with virtual reality, so otherwise it would be making $50 a second. That's not a decision I like out of Popsio Socks. I would say that he seems to like all the advanced buildings, and he doesn't really differentiate that much. By the way, I kinda like this move on Steph's part, buying into PB Head stock, forcing him to defend at least, making it a very awkward situation when PB Head wants to buy Pops out to get his stock and Steph. Steph, however, has to attack PB Head or buy Pops out himself. But by attacking PB Head, he gets those stocks free, and the problem is that he probably cannot outpace PB Head in terms of getting to that buy, because he also does need significantly more cash. He needs actually over 500,000 to buy Pops. At which point you might just cross your fingers and hope to buy PB Head instead. PB Head had been running the same production for the longest time, just some electronics, some steel that he doesn't have turned on because iron went out of hand, some power which keeps staying strong because Steph does not have much. Well, he actually has 2 solars, but the fact that he has solar means that the price fluctuates quite a bit. So it's kind of very beneficial for PB Head. And Pops has very awkward power, just all over the place. This is not how you place your buildings. I don't like this at all, unfortunately. But Steph is trying to get a move on PB Head, which is a very, very difficult thing to pull off. And I'm not sure he has a chance to. Which is most unfortunate. Chems, very good. PB Head had been running chems for a long time, and for some reason he pressed on tab, and he had been auto-selling for the longest time, but the colony demand is just so good, and no one was competing with him for a while, so the price got out of hand. I'd like to point out that he never upgraded a second time, which definitely helped. And I wonder if PB Head is trying to get a buy on Steph at this point, or if he thinks that he will survive anyway, because just one off-world and a lack of a sub is something. I can't see the percentages during the auction, which is a bit annoying. I believe this is a black market auction started by PB Head to get some water, which is really, really useful.
Market misinformation in progress.
And here comes the buy, I would expect, because if I were PB Head, I would probably dare and buy Pops here socks out, because I think it's very difficult for Steph to get to the buy. And yeah, that's about what's going to happen, I think. Except PB Head is not doing that. He needs almost 1 million to buy Steph out at this point. If he buys his stock, that will be a bit different, of course. He also doesn't want to cancel launches, I guess, is the thing. He does need them. But now he can buy Pops out, and will he do that? That's a question. He does not seem to be interested.
Off-world shipment launched. Look at all the money.
Oh, that's a terrible move. Popsia Socks is basically saying that I'm gonna die and I'm gonna take you with me. But BB Head is procrastinating for some reason. I can only assume that he wants to buy stuff out because he's afraid that the off-world market is going to be a good enough thing, and the fact that Steph owns 5 of PB Head stocks does mean something. The problem with that is... well, actually there's no problem, because if he does buy Steph out, what is going to happen is the fact that there's just no way Pops can pull it off. Unfortunately, he's quite dead no matter how much money he makes, because if BB Head can return his stock, he's going to be too expensive. And somehow, I've been ignoring the hackery, but honestly, I think Pops had been mishacking things for a while. BB Head finally gets to the buy. I wouldn't call it an auto-win if he buys Pops, but I do wonder why he waited so long, because it was really close to an auto-win. And he waited for a while. I think it would have been an auto-win if he could somehow buy Steph out. But that was just way too expensive. And now that he finally has the sub who is going to make him a ton of money, because he's going to make him a ton of money. In fact, I wonder if he waited for Pops to move into second off-world, which I think he actually did a while back, so I wonder why he waited. I don't mean to sound like a jerk, but I think BB Head was on the phone or something. Oh no, yeah, Steph was not an AI. So yeah, if you mean auto-win in that sense, then no, obviously. I thought you just meant that there's no way for... Frankly, I think no matter what would have happened, there was no way for either player to pull it back. Unfortunately. I would like to point out that no one has been making glass forever, and the glass is at over 400, and still no one is making it, when silicon is 10 times as cheap. And not even the sub AI is making glass, which is just mind-boggling. I don't believe Steph may have lost, actually. I'm sorry, I'm a bit distracted here by things, mostly just by the fact that I need another cup of tea. But yeah, PB is going to take the game. Number 2, with Steph holding out for a while. And I definitely think that Steph played pretty strong, but he definitely waited a little bit too long on the advanced buildings. Really, you had to do something, and I think this game you could hack so much, and you could hack so well. Unfortunately, Pops made some poor decisions. You could see actually that the way Pops played and Steph played was diametrically opposed, because Pops went into all of the advanced buildings, and you can see that Pleasure Dome's not so good, especially with how expensive power was during the game. Whereas Steph went to very few and very late. Which means that PB Head, who went into the right buildings at the right time, which was an off-world and an optimization center, took the game.